Okay, if we could answer this question, what problems will we face in 5 years? If we could answer that accurately, we'd all be pretty wealthy. Why is this a good question to know in terms of things that are patented? One of the reasons is that patents typically take a couple years to issue from the time you would file for one to the time you actually get one. It's a process that can take a couple years. And so, if we identify something that we think will be a big deal a couple years from now, it could be something potentially valuable to consider. And things that we want to think about when we're doing this is, among others, these three things I've listed. Technological trends. Why are they important? Because sometimes something that doesn't make sense right this very minute might make sense a couple years down the road. One such example I was personally involved with was at one point, maybe back in the mid-90s, somebody was basically describing to me, I worked in electronics and computer engineering, and someone was basically describing what really amounts to like an iPod type application. And I was like, nah, that's crazy. That's never going to work because, it would cost $2,000 just to have enough memory to hold a few songs, and the battery would have to be the size of a big lantern battery to make it all work. Well, what happened? Well, memory got cheaper, so fast forward, 7 or 8 years, and then suddenly it is possible to store a couple albums on the memory inside a small player, and the battery life got better. So things that didn't make sense at the very moment that I was thinking about them still made sense to try to develop because they later became very commercially feasible. So depending on what your idea is, sometimes things that might not make sense this very moment might make sense later. Another thing that is, I think, more difficult to judge is social trends. Okay? When we say right now, hey, I'm going green, we know that people are thinking about the environment. But if even 10 or 15 years ago you said you were going green, somebody said, well, you better get to a doctor quick. Okay? Going green. Okay? But the point is that right now, things that help the environment, clean energy, those kinds of things are very popular. Okay? Years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, safety became a very popular thing. Things that are safe. Today we drink bottled water. Okay? If you went back in time to the 1940s and told somebody you were paying $1 for water, they wouldn't believe you. Okay? But these are some of the things. So if we can identify a social trend that's on the verge of happening, we may spot a good idea. Okay? And finally, legal trends. Okay? Legal trends happen because the government, in particular our government, passes laws. And those laws sometimes create problems that need to be solved. One such field that I've been personally involved in is in pollution. Okay? So I've done some work with different, let's say, truck companies that make diesel engines. And then the government comes along and says, okay, we're going to have stricter standards for diesel engines. And then that creates new problems, and they have to develop new things to meet these standards. So sometimes legal trends can create problems that need to be solved. So just to recap our innovation mindset, it comes down to these four things. We want to try to identify problems, think about multiple uses for any inventions that you may already be thinking about, keep your eyes on different trends such as technological, social, and legal, and keep your eyes open for those accidental inventions. So again, this is just something, the idea is, the takeaway from this is that from this point forward, as you see things, whether it's at your work or things you're doing at home, you might come up with yet other ideas.